goals, and how the world needs to change and what we can actually do to bring about some of these wonderful changes. And we were divided up into smaller groups, and we worked together. And here is a picture of the group that I was fortunate enough to work with. This is inside the main theatre there at the Gaston Foundation. Should say about this place, although it's in the heart of rural India, in the middle of some rundown areas, a lot of money has been spent building a wonderful, wonderful centre that supports schools all across the area. So people from this centre drive out, cover something like 50 miles in every direction, running out and bringing in schools from lots of villages. And so schools come into it and people from here go out to the school. So this was a collection. Here you can see a group of the school children that were drawn in from the local schools, and then the group of teachers that were involved. And over there on the left-hand side is the teeming face of Timmins, who you could recognise from the project. And there I am over on the right. So we were not covering all the development goals, but we were focusing around these 13, 14, 15, this sort of area. What sort of activities could we think of? And so we asked the children, we talked to the children about what sort of things they already knew about climate action, about life below water and life on land, habitat things and so on. What did they know about it? What did they care about it? And we bounced lots of ideas. So to be honest, what happened for the first couple of days was an awful lot of this, of sitting around in small groups or large groups. And in fact, this was more typical, people sitting on the floor in a ring, group of teachers and pupils, just talking about these areas and thinking, what did they know? What do we know already? What would be interesting to have a look at? And all sorts of ideas came out. First couple of days, we were just brainstorming. We were just thinking about what sort of things we could think about. And we ended up with boards, the usual thing, boards full of little stickers like this, post-it notes with people's ideas. And there were myriad wonderful ideas, but we were only there a week. So from about day 2, we had to start saying, right, what are we going to focus in on? What's going to be our focus? Let's come up with one really good idea to help us think about the climate, the interaction with the habitat, and what might make a difference. And one thing that one of the girls said really struck home. One of the girls, when we were talking about the changes that they've seen and about climate change and so on, one of the girls said, my grandfather often asks, where have all the sparrows gone? Now, for me, that really struck home. So this is going to be a bit of a storytelling session, because having told you that story, I'm now going to dive off into another story, which tells me why this had such a powerful impact on me. And that's back to where I live. So this girl had asked, her grandfather had asked, where have all the sparrows gone? Now, the last person that asked me that question was my father, sadly no longer with us, but he brought me up in that house that we see there up in York. And this is what he looked like in about the time, probably when that's me down the bottom right there, that's me the same age as some of you might well be now, although perhaps a little younger. Most of you are a little older. So that was me. We hadn't even invented colour photographs then. So there I was with my father living in that house. And the one thing he had at the back of the house was a very, very small concrete yard. We didn't have a garden. There was a little patch of earth there which has got no plants in the picture, but which did have a few little plants in. That was my father's world. My father loved birds. My father fed the birds regularly. Every mealtime, at the end of any mealtime, any scraps and things that were left over on the plate were cut up and put out for the birds. And his particular favourites were birds called bluetits. And they sometimes would nest in a box on the wall. Even in that little backyard, they would come in. In the winter, we'd have the starlings, they came in. But all year round, we had sparrows. Now, when I go to that house now, and in fact, when I was going before my father died, the sparrows disappeared. There are no more sparrows there. They don't go in that yard anymore. There's no point in picking up the food. They're not there. My father said to me, where have all the sparrows gone? So when that little girl in India said, my grandfather says, where have all the sparrows gone? And we all looked at us, the group, we all just looked and we thought, that's going to be the focus for our project. Where have all the sparrows gone? And of course, as soon as we started looking, we found that there was coverage of the mystery of the vanishing sparrows in the media. So we found that in the UK, the Independent had written an article about the mystery of the vanishing sparrow, but we were in India at the time, remember, and lo and behold, in the Hindu, there was the same question being asked, where have all the sparrows gone? And as we talked as a group, and remember the group were teachers from all over India and all over the world, we realised that the question about where have the sparrows gone was a really good lead in to think about what is changing in the habitats in our world. Why are some of the species that we've grown up with and known, why are they suddenly disappearing? It's not only the sparrows, but we like the sparrows because they're pretty universal. Now, at this point, I think I should say that this story isn't true all across the world. Not every region have all the sparrows gone. In some regions, there are lots of sparrows. Kern tells me that where he lives in Belgium, sparrows are still regular visitors. So obviously, like a lot of these things, it's not a simple solution. It's not just one answer. And in fact, if hopefully you engage in the project, think about following up on this today, you might start to think about what's having the impact on the sparrows where I live. Are there still sparrows where you live? Have the sparrows disappeared? If so, what might have caused that disappearance? Now, one of the members of our group was the wonderful Dr. Parimi. And Dr. Parimi said, as soon as the little girl, just after the little girl had said about the sparrows gone, he said, I've read a story about this. Now, in the area that we were in at Kupang, in the local language is called Telugu. And Dr. Parimi said this story was written in Telugu, and he went off and researched, and lo and behold, and we didn't have this at the time, we only had the Telugu version, but now you don't have to learn Telugu for this. We've actually got a copy of the story of the last sparrow, which was written by Dr. Sankar from that region, and we've got a copy of that available to you in English. And I should say at this point, we have got a lot of resources now gathered together. Kern's kindly put in the Climate Action website for you to work with if you want to follow up on any of this. So all the things I'm talking about, you can get your hands on and follow up on after this session. One thing I have just realised is that I have lost the chat window. So if any of you have been chatting to me, I forgot to turn on the chat window after when I lost the screen, the chat disappears. And so hopefully I've now got my chat window back, and I hope I haven't missed. Oh, right, yes, with people talking about things that are happening already around the world, looking at birds in the cities and the birds that are missing. So I can see it's actually ringing a bell with quite a few of you. Right, so coming back, so the story of the sparrow was one of the resources, and we ended up, after a few days' work, we put together some resources and some lesson ideas about thinking about things like climate change through the filter of small activities, local things that people will recognise. Because we were thinking half the issue is about even raising the awareness with parents and with the community about these changes that happen. I mean, we see the media arguing about is climate change happening or not. What people might not know is about what the scientific evidence is for climate change and so on. But what they will definitely know is have local species changed? Are there differences we can see in things like the sparrow? And you can see there was a wonderful group of people that were recording this and doing drawings as we went along through this event. And here we see Kern there, Kern Timmers presenting the findings of our group, and there's Dr. Parimi telling the story of the last sparrow. And in the background, there's just the slide at the conference that was trying to pull together what we were trying to do, getting students like yourselves involved in looking at things around sparrows in their area and what was going on, and from that starting to think about things like habitat change, climate change, and why these things may be changing. So our group finished their final presentation, and we took a whole load of questions and answers that day, and I'll be taking some questions and answers from you shortly, I'm sure. Although what I find is now every time I change the slide, I'm losing the chat window. So I apologise if any of you are asking me questions, but I can't seem to walk into them. I can't have control the PowerPoint without the chat window disappearing. So I will return to your chat in a minute when we've got through the presentation. So after that presentation, now one thing I should say is in the middle of the presentation, we talked about, wouldn't it be good to have a website to do this on? And we said, let's do a mock-up of a website. Now the wonderful Kern Timmers overnight actually built us a very rough working website, and that's still up there. So if any of you wanted to go and have a look at it, you can have a look at that. But for today's project, to make things easier for you working on this, those of you that wish to work with this, please actually put the resources from that site onto the site you're currently using for this program. I say this program, I know it actually officially finished last Friday, and I'm a bit of a postscript, but if you wish to carry on as a week 5 project, this is where you will find the resources I've been talking about that emerged from that session, that the rest of the week that we spent gathering together, thinking around the disappearing sparrow, to have ideas and projects that you could do back at school. Well, what sort of things are we thinking about? All right, one of the things that you could possibly think of doing is, why the sparrows disappearing? You'll find if you go and start researching online or in books, you'll find there's not just one simple idea about what might be causing the disappearance of sparrows. There's different theories. Which one do you think might be relevant in your country? What's your evidence for thinking that's what's impacting the sparrows in your area rather than other areas? Is it climate? Is it something else? What we also found was that to engage people, to start them thinking about this, it's really good to go and chat. And when we were working with the group of students, one of the things they did is they went back home and they talked to their family members and the members of their community, the village communities that they came from, about memories of sparrows, and that every community seems to have stories about sparrows. In London, there was even a famous musical called Sparrows Can't Sing about the sparrow. And in fact, London itself, the people who live in London, the working class people from London, who are called Cockneys, who live within the sound of a certain church, they call themselves Cockney sparrows. So sparrows is a very powerful image here in London. But what about your community? Are there stories about your community, like the sparrow that we saw out there in Cupar? Are there legends and tales like that that everybody in your community knows that you could retell to other people in other parts of the world, or so that you could share the stories and legends around about the sparrow? What we also did was put together some practical projects looking at some aspects of what might be happening. For instance, in parts of India, one of the theories is that they've removed the potential nesting sites for sparrows that used to nest under the eaves of the houses, and the new houses don't allow the sparrows to nest where they used to. So they came up with, as you can see in the background of the picture, some ideas about providing nesting sites. Is that something that might be affecting sparrows in your community, and might that help you help the sparrows survive? Also, if you have ideas and you take photos, or you have some drawings of sparrows that you like to do, or you have stories that you find, would you like to contribute them to the website to share them around the world so that people around the world can find out what you think about sparrows and what stories are from your area? So there's a whole range of different activities that you may wish to do, or you may not. It's entirely up to you. Just if you do think that you would like to do something like this, well, Cohen has kindly provided the resources there for you, and what he tells me is that you've got a way of submitting resources that you've been doing throughout the project, and that week 5 currently is still blank, so that you could have, having done your project at school, if you've done anything about the sparrows, if you've done a PowerPoint or found some pictures, or you found some stories or whatever, if you would like to participate, you could submit one file that puts together your work, no matter what format, the file format that suits you best, and post it to the week 5 project folder on the Climate Action Info website, and that will I think there might even be some sort of token appreciation or reward, but that's up to Karen. But that's for you. If you would like to participate, if you think the sparrows are an interesting thing to actually approach this climate action from, if you think you might like to share stories about sparrows and think about getting your families and communities engaged through the Sparrow Project, that's what we'd like to do. So thanks for inviting me. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to flip out of this so I can start seeing your shares again. So if you bear with me, it'll take me a little bit of time to catch up with what was in the chat window. Uh, wow, loads and loads of posts. There's no way I'm going to be able to deal with that. But oh, this, so Lindita still has lots of sparrows here. And they sing out loud in the morning and evenings. It's funny, in the UK we have the starlings doing that, but the sparrows don't do that anymore. Oh, is that there's something. Rahina Hannah has problems with the sparrows. They're building nests in the ventilators, blocking the nests. So obviously the disappearing sparrows haven't disappeared everywhere. Um, yes, here we go. People from India saying yes, we have very few sparrows. But Tammy Dunbar, I'm sorry, I can't see where Tammy's from, but wherever Tammy Dunbar is, they've got lots of sparrows too. And oh, and the religious song about his eyes on the sparrow, presumably he's being the Lord. Welcome. Um, I think that's just about it for me. Oh, still lots of sparrows in Greece. Yet Grandson in India says lots of sparrows have left India. So it looks like it is something that varies around the world. So still lots in Greece. So what's the difference between Greece and India? Why are the sparrows going from one and not the other? You'll be able to find them in the green areas, but not in the city. Lots of sparrows still in the Ukraine, though, like Belgium, the Ukraine still has sparrows. There are, as you say, when you go online, as soon as you start researching, I think we found 12 or 13 different possible explanations about why the sparrows might be disappearing from some areas. And some of those would explain why it's different in Ukraine and India. Certainly in London, one of the theories is that it used to be the old grain shops and things, that there were lots of, the port had lots of grain and things delivered in sacks, and that the sacks leaked, and there was lots of grain and stuff. And when people were delivering from grocery shops and things, there was lots of spilling. And so that the sparrows specialised in feeding on things that fell out of sacks. So, and that now all that is sealed in, and the sparrows can't get at that food. So lots of food is one of it. Um, so they have sparrows in Sri Lanka, but not so many in India. So what's the climate? What's different? Is it climate? Is climate? I'm terribly ignorant about the difference in the climate between South Sri Lanka and South India. So though they seem geographically close to me, they might have different climates. So there might be climate issue there. But anyway, my role is not to provide the answers. That's for you to do. My role is to just ask the question, suggest the project, and see if you like the idea of using the sparrows as a way of approaching such a large and complex issue. How's that going? Is that a good place to pause, or can I get questions or by audio, or do I have to try and read through the fast scrolling list? I haven't got any questions. People are saying things but not asking questions. So perhaps, is there any way to bring them back on a larger scale other than having bird feeders and green spaces? That's a really good question. And frankly, I think to know the answer to that, we would have to know why the sparrows were disappearing in your area. I suspect there isn't a single answer. There probably is a large-scale answer that might be possible, but we need to find out what was the major contributory cause. For instance, there are some theories around things like pesticides and so on. If it is a whole-scale use of pesticides, and so obviously banning the use of pesticides would have addressed that issue. So thank you, Susanna. Thanks. The idea of the sparrow's story will go all over the world. But the interesting thing, given that you're all now in touch with one another, one of the interesting things is you might want to think about pairing, finding somewhere where it's the opposite position to what it is in your school. If you're a school in an area where the sparrows have gone, would you like to hook up with the school where they're still there and see if you can work out what the difference is? As someone who used to have sparrows on their door as a nest and blaming climate change, they feel that it's climate change. But remember, there are lots of theories. It's different. It's quite difficult to get sometimes from having a theory about what's causing something to actually having some sort of scientific evidence and proof, which is something you might like to explore as a project. Right, Diane's just wondering, how did people get to start a conversation about the UN Sustainable Development goals with their students? And I think that's one of the reasons we decided to go with the sparrow studies. That there are so many of those goals, it's quite hard to get a foothold on them. So we thought starting with a small project around one and then growing from that would be a way forward, which is why we started the last sparrow project. Gertrude Tripathi wants to cut out the research there. What are the main reasons for their disappearance? As I say, there are at least 11 theories, and I strongly suggest that the aim of today is not to provide the answers, but to ask the question and give you perhaps a challenge and to think about doing some research about finding out why they might have gone. And I say it might well be different in different parts of the world. We are going to, thanks for the presentation. We are going to talk more about sparrows, says Melissa. Thank you, Melissa. You were there. You will know the background of that story too. So Melissa also, I should say, there were other groups. For today's broadcast, we just talked about this particular project, but Melissa and the other groups did a whole range of projects from that, which I hope also people will be able to engage with. Although I don't know the channel by which they would do so. Perhaps Melissa can tell us how we find out about her project. What made me aspire to be the person I am today? Actually, I think what made me the person I am today is just the passage of time. I started off as a young, enthusiastic teacher and ended up now as an old, enthusiastic teacher. Oh, hello. Victor's just come in and taken over. Thanks, Gamal. I hope you have a good time over there on the Climate Action website, continuing your work on sparrows.
Okay, Tony, thank you so much for sharing that inspiring story. So, people, seems like the Climate Action Project isn't finished yet, and we end up with a week 5 challenge. Why are sparrows disappearing? And you can post your findings as a video, a presentation, a song, whatever you want on our website. And I guess that Tony will pick the 2 winners. Is that okay?
That's fine by me.
So
Well,
people,
it we with Kern. It won't be just one person. It's always bad to have one person maybe.
that's right, that's right. So people, feel free to unmute your microphone. And Melissa, let us hear your students.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Tony. Hi,
Hi,
Cohen.
Melissa.
Hi.
Yes, so you want to hear my students, where my students, my students, my class. Say hi to everyone.
Hi. Hi from
Okay,
Sri Lanka.
Tony, you inspired us to have a good day. So